The musical is a real type B concept, isn't it? Imagine an entire genre of characters whose emotions are so complex and vast, they simply must be set to music to get the full picture. A person might say musicals are unrealistic because in real life nobody bursts into song, when what they mean is they were never around theater kids the year Hamilton came out. And either way, they're missing the point. A good musical takes an emotion and creates a well-woven hyperspace of song and dance to articulate it. Obviously, it's impossible for everybody to know melodies and dances with spontaneous synchronicity as the films imply. The realism comes from the detailed truth of the emotion, not the logistics of presentation. It's the same reason we write music that does not go into musicals. Of the millions of people in the 1970s saying we should take care of the environment, Joni Mitchell was the only one who arranged her feelings in such a way as to write Big Yellow Taxi.
They paved paradise, put up a parking lot.
Wouldn't life be so much more boring if Elton John kept his feelings about Saturday to himself? Or if Sir Mix-a-Lot said, you know what, maybe a world where we only like small butts is okay. So worked into the peaks and valleys of a story are characters conducting such extravagant sequences that liven up the narrative and imprint their point deeper inside of your brain. Even in more understated musicals, the idea of singing about your actions and feelings makes film an even more collaborative art form than usual. The point is, how much more are you getting out of these starts and stops by including them in the film? Well, if the film is The Greatest Showman, the answer to that question is, fucking nothing. I've had a long, complicated history with this film, and I think I'm finally at the point where I'm comfortable calling it terrible. It's about as underdeveloped, emotionally empty of a musical as you can imagine. But it's not awful for a lack of talent. At a glance, The Greatest Showman fits the description of an effective musical. It is a story with arcs, technically, and features musical accompaniment to moments of heightened emotion. And the songs are all bangers. The scale of the show is unmistakable. Usually you pace the energy of the music to match where we are in the story. Big songs reserved for big moments like the end. But The Greatest Showman says, nah, this is a musical where every song feels like the last song. You could cut to credits after every single one and the film could convincingly be over. I kept expecting the movie to do stuff like this. And I mean, I knew what I was getting into. The second a trap beat started playing over the 20th Century Fox logo, I knew what to expect. In one sonic blowout after another, The Greatest Showman champions against people who are unable to enjoy anything but the most sophisticated of high art. It's a real Sullivan's Travels, not a dishonest film. And while the merits of this are up to interpretation, the film is definitely making this statement trying to justify its own existence. But let's call a spade a spade. Even if it's okay for bad art to exist and still enjoy it, which it is, it's still bad art, and it's still okay to point out why that is in a way that doesn't belittle people. I feel like The Greatest Showman fans are pretty cut and dry about why. The story sucks. Sure, but the music, yes, the music is so loud, with infectious rhythm, melody. Jackman, Efron, Zendaya, they bring every note to life with spirited performance and voices. And yeah, it's nice to listen to. I will never argue against that. But my problem with the music is it just doesn't mean anything. It doesn't help tell the story, and when that's the case, it's much easier to get annoyed at the empty spectacle, like the only reason they're so big is because they're trying to make you forget about the flaws and incoherence of the plot. If there ever was a demonstration of the difference between a good song and a good storytelling tool, it's every song from The Greatest Showman. Let me ask you something. If you had never seen the movie before, how much information about the story would you be able to glean from these songs? I'm talking characters, situations, anything. Now I want to compare 3 songs to illustrate specifically what I mean. Wouldn't It Be Loverly from My Fair Lady, America from West Side Story, and From Now On from The Greatest Showman. Looking at what these songs give us to work with from a completely context-free point of view. Wouldn't It Be Loverly is sung by the character Eliza Doolittle. She's waxing poetic about specific things she wants. She wants chocolate, she wants a giant chair, she wants someone to rest her head on her knee. In 3 lines, she references the warmth of the room, as well as just wanting a room to begin with. So she's probably homeless, or at least poor. You know her character extends beyond the material. She wants affection and someone to take care of her. She wants emotional warmth as well as physical. Note the lyric is all I want, which means she doesn't think she's asking for much. Either that or the ceiling of her desire is chocolate, a loving husband, and to not be homeless. And the title is Loverly, not lovely, as the proper pronunciation would be. While doing a cold read of the lyrics wouldn't give you the proper impression of just how important Eliza's literacy is to the story, it still puts it into your head that she pronounces words improperly. Now, America's a little different in the film versus Broadway, but I'm using the film version of West Side Story. It is sung by the characters Anita and Bernardo, each accompanied by a respective company of men and women. And if you read the lyrics, it's a simple back and forth about whether or not life in America is better than life in Puerto Rico. The girls talk about all these symbols of opportunity, buying on credit, in-unit washing machines, industry, Cadillacs, while the boys list out examples of racism and violence, and maybe why it's better back home. The lyrics make sure you know how each side feels about their home and why. And you'd also know that America is where they are as they sing, because Bernardo talks about going back to San Juan. And finally, From Now On, sung by P.T. Barnum. Well, something's lured him away from what should be considered more important, particularly a person or people. It looks like he was chasing status or approval, and he regrets it. But he has an epiphany. He's making a promise, here and now, that these ways are behind him. And that's it. Compared to the other 2 songs, From Now On paints a far more incomplete picture. Who has he betrayed? How has he betrayed them? What lengths did he go to win the approval of these people he wanted to please? And this is one of the more detailed songs from the movie. I'm not trying to suggest musical numbers should have a singular focus. Not every song has to be an info dump. Step in Time from Mary Poppins is 100% about the energy. But even then, they say around the chimney, on the railing, you'd still know you're on a roof. When you watch The Greatest Showman, of course you can fill in the character relationships and plot details because you've seen them unfold. But removing it from that context shows how little they're taking advantage of those things in the songs themselves, highlighting how many missed opportunities there are. The Greatest Showman is never specific about the circumstances of its characters beyond the superficial. Each song captures a broad, sweeping emotional statement that, yes, may apply to what the character is going through, but only because it's so broad it could apply to pretty much everyone who has ever felt the emotion the song's talking about before. How much mental gymnastics do you have to pull in order for the lyrics of the song to actually be about what's happening in the scene? To convince yourself it was written to describe this situation and these feelings in a way no other song could. We're getting into adding the context of a song now, how we've gained something extra by experiencing it in this story. In West Side Story, the belongingness of Puerto Rican people in the United States is a primary theme of the film. By living in America, not only is Anita receiving all these benefits she talks about, but also asserting that she has a place here. It's not, I wanna be in America because of cars or washing machines, but because it's declaring she's got the power to make the choice to be there, despite the racist whims of those wishing they could deny her that choice. This is a much more impactful anthem of self-affirmation in the face of prejudice than 5 minutes of these hooligans screaming and bouncing around. This Is Me could be about any character pushing back against prejudice. America could not. From Now On could be about any character resolving to a change in their life. Valjean's soliloquy could not. What's amazing about art is you can be that specific. You draw someone into a perspective that's maybe not their own and curate an emotional bridge between them. And the first step is communicating the uniqueness of the character's struggles through music here.
So what do you want, Paul? What's that one concrete goal that motivates all your actions?
I don't think I have one of those.
Well, then how's anyone supposed to sympathize with you, Paul?
Just like Joni Mitchell, the most rewarding musicals all have in common that the emotions align themselves in a unique, one-of-a-kind way that matches the narrative. And I'm gonna let you in on a little secret. They know that. A musical would never be written this deficient in specificity by accident. The reason they do this is because they want the songs to be applicable no matter the context you hear them, to be a hit outside the film as well. You realize this music doesn't exist for the story they're telling. These are songs meant to be sung well by other people, like for music schools to make videos of their pampered choir kids performing them. Moreover, the film's vagary requires less empathy from the audience in order to sympathize with the characters. One can effortlessly imagine these grand emotional statements as about your struggles. Okay, so I didn't know this was a thing until I found out about it as I was editing this video, but it turns out there is actually a psychological manipulation technique called the Barnum effect, in which someone will believe that personality descriptions apply specifically to them more so than to other people, despite the fact that the description is actually filled with information that applies to everyone. This is what people who don't believe in like zodiac signs, that's what they place their disbelief in, like the traits are so vague that they apply to everybody. And it is exactly what these songs are doing. This movie stinks. This is not good storytelling. There is a difference between carefully building an identifiable, relatable plight and banking on projection. You don't just remind your audience that emotional turmoil merely exists and then ask them to do the rest of the work. Now you might be saying, man, Brian from the channel Brian, we have the context for the music, and in context, it works. Of course you're probably missing out on something if you've never watched the movie before. And I mean, that's true. Possibly my favorite musical number of all time is Edelweiss, which is an 8-line folk song about a flower. It might be impossible to imagine a song that tells you less about a story through lyrics alone. But when it's Captain Von Trapp about to flee the country because it was just annexed by Nazis and he refuses to fight for them, it hits harder. He loves his country, and he doesn't even know if he's coming back. This is a man of rank, forced to watch his country basically hand itself over and betray everything it stood for. But as one last fuck you to the Reich, he leads the audience in a folk song as if to say, yeah, you might have put up your flag, but we all know that what this country stands for, or at least what it should, can't be torn down by intimidation. And we'll still be here in the brighter tomorrow where you're gone, even if we don't know how or when that'll come to be. There's all this emotional weight, and it's a quiet, acoustic song, not a bombastic, forceful, overdone power anthem begging you to feel something for these characters.
People talk loud when they want to act smart, right? Correct!
What the hell does Greatest Showman even do? There's not much meaning added in context compared to what's there out of context, which, as I've established, is next to nothing. A Million Dreams is I have dreams with nothing about the depths and richness of them. This Is Me is I am bullied but I'm beautiful without learning anything about the people singing it. From Now On, Hugh Jackman is sad but then is not. Rewrite the Stars is troubled romance without exploring the troubles. Tightrope is the same thing, but this time Michelle Williams is singing it herself. Come Alive is so bad it borders on contemporary Christian rock. The Other Side is Actually, that one is not so bad. I can't imagine a fan of this film trying to argue I'm being overly uncharitable here, because then we have to talk about the story of The Greatest Showman. And do you really want to be on the side that depends on it being good? This is a movie that concludes a scene with a photograph being taken, and then cuts to a drawing of that photograph in the paper. Like, instead of the photograph. So cool, alright? There's my beef with The Greatest Showman. The songs don't mean anything because the lyrics are generic AF, and the story has no foundation for them. And mind you, this is only something I have a problem with when you consider them as part of the film. I listen to the soundtrack pretty regularly, sort of divorced from the milquetoast screenplay. It's really good. Don't change a thing about the compositions. Just fix the story, fix the characters, fix the lyrics, fix Michelle Williams' CGI picnic blanket, and bam, you have a movie. And if somebody says you can't like these songs, or you're wrong for liking these songs, even if it's for the exact same reasons I've offered here, they're the ones who are incorrect. I'm not out to belittle or disrespect anybody. I want people to be able to step back and realize they're being manipulated, that because of their emotional commitment to the songs, they might be willing to give the movie itself the benefit of the doubt, when the screenplay, the songs, and then the movie are actually three different separate artistic entities coexisting. You don't need to love all three for your experience with just the music to be valid. And if you think The Greatest Showman is this incredible, well-written screenplay, well, then I'm not sure what it is you see. Have your fun, but I don't get it.